it's kind of nice. Is like it says, this is spring break,
Yeah.
so which is interesting because like when you do this one, the topic spiritism in our lives, you kind of sit there and think about it for a second. It's like, okay, spring break, the people that came today, what does that say to those people that came to the center when there was a break, fun, kids are out off, things like this, and then this is like, you know what, this means something to me to keep coming here, even when your kids are out of school. It's like we have our one young lady here with us today, and but as so, and it also brings up this interesting question for those that are here. So Levia knows this one probably better than most of us here in this room, but it's like I came when I came into Spiritism, I had a rocky relationship, many rocky relationships, and it seems to be that Spiritism is what came to my aid. Before I get into mine, how many of you in here have had Spiritism, the doctrine, the teachings, even just members of the community come and help you, or gave something to you, some little bit of wisdom and knowledge that helped you with your day-to-day life? I was going to say most of you. So, and that's maybe one of the reasons why you're here. Again, taking that special thing with it being spring break, you're here, is you realize the value of the doctrine, what we teach, and how it applies to your day-to-day life. And that was and this is something that I was going through. I've been talking to several of my friends, and this is not working. So, maybe because they're on the. Let's try it this way. There it is. Technology. So, I was talking to several friends and everything else, Spiritist friends, new friends, near and old, and then they were saying like, "Well, when did I get involved with this?" Well, to most of you, some of you know, remember, it's like I kind of got introduced. Now that it's March, it just came to my mind. It's like somewhere in this month will be my 18th anniversary of being introduced to Spiritism. I literally joined Spiritism in March of 2005.
My goodness, how you remember?
So, well, that's another tough. That's a mimetic trick of mine because I've traveled so much.
I will not get it.
I will take questions though, and it's like, but it was. I mean, when it first got me into Spiritism 18 years ago, is like I was searching, and like several others that I know they've kind of like they'll hop religions and everything else, looking for something that fits. I grew up Lutheran or Catholic light to some people, so I was like, and it was okay, but when I asked questions, it was like it didn't give me the deeper meaning. It's like I didn't have that understanding and everything else, and it came to the equivalent of the church saying because I said so, and that's not fulfilling. That's not satisfying. So I got introduced to the doctrine, and actually the book is over there. There's a lovely little purple book on Introduction to Spiritist Philosophy. It's over there in that little cabinet I just saw. And they were starting in the second half, so it's kind of like a boiled down version of the Spirits book. So it came in, I sat down, got the brief introduction, and they started reading from that book. And like the Spirits book, it's like question and answers and things like that. And so I sat there and I'm listening to it. I was like, okay, makes sense. All right. And the woman that was the instructor for the class just says, ask questions, challenge. I want you to understand this. I was like, whoa, that's different. So I says, well, first day, I'm just going to be a sponge. So like for the first 2-3 months, I was a sponge. And eventually I started saying like, okay, I'm not able to argue with too much of this. And I've got things in my mind that have come listening about the, karma, and you can apply it to physics. When you sit there and you look at Newton's 3 laws of physics, and you're thinking that's just a physical object, but then yet it actually applies to your spirit as well. a spirit at rest will tend to stay at rest. It won't, unless acted upon a outside force. We won't progress unless there's a reason for us to progress, usually in the form of pain or trial or something like that to help us to grow. And then, like it says, in a spirit in motion, we'll want to stay in motion. We see that. We look at Andre Luis, and you can see that once he was activated and came into it, he was out there. He was helping people and doing other things. And I was just mesmerized by this. And it spoke to me, because it's like when I would go to church and they would say in normal church or Christian churches, Catholic, whatever, they would say, pick up your cross and follow me, as Jesus would say. Well, now with the doctrine, I understand that part a lot better. So it's like, live by his example. It's like he was able to endure the hardships of his spirit because he knew there was something better. The doctrine teaches us the same thing. It's like we have our trials, we have our reasons for here, we have our things that we can learn morally, philosophically, many different ways that we can learn and progress in this lifetime. And then with the note thing, you're getting better, and things are growing. So now that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's still just my first year, and I loved it. And again, this is where I always turn my recommendation to, since even though the doctrine started in France with Kardec, Leon Denis, and everything else, and they started the base foundation of all the doctrine. And then it went over, and then somehow it went over to Brazil. And then Brazil, it flourished. And it was like, to use like a phrase of technology, it was like sitting here saying, it's like we went from black and white to Technicolor TV. When you started looking at the simplicity of the doctrine, it was very complicated. But even then, black and white TV was still a marvel to have moving pictures. And then all of a sudden you progress, and all of a sudden it's progressing in color, all the way up to 4K. Look at the volumes and volumes of information that have progressed out there. I was like, in the English section, we're still in just basic Technicolor TV. But when you start bringing in all the books that are still in Portuguese that haven't been translated yet, you're definitely in 8K definition Spiritism. The amount of information, the amount of knowledge that's out there that's available to learn and bring into your life. When I read these books, I'm sitting there with a highlighter through most of these books, whether it's Andre Luis, Emmanuel, Memoirs of a Suicide, big heavy books. The doctrine, like I'm highlighting because everything has a meaning, or a lot of parts have meanings that apply to me. Some don't, maybe not now, but maybe in the future. It's like, as one of the things of me doing my moves and interacting now, starting to interact with other centers in the area, I'm doing the Spirits book now in 3 different centers. So 3 days a week, I'm studying different parts of the Spirits book with 3 different centers. And you get little bits of knowledge, because it's an open dialogue. How does this question go to you? How does this question to you? Like for Spirits book number 1, what is God? The supreme intelligence, first cause of all things. It's the first time ever that it gave me an answer that was, I don't want to say ambiguous, abstract. It was an abstract answer, because when you look at intelligence, we don't have a clear definition of intelligence. Just like we don't have a clear definition of the wind. We can't define. We can say we can't truly define the wind. We feel it, we sense it, we can measure it. We don't know where it starts. We don't know where it ends. And then you start putting to God's supreme intelligence. And then it says that we're made in God's image. So we are the supreme intelligence based on God's supreme intelligence. And then it's like when you start looking at abstract term after abstract term, it's like things start making more sense. And especially when the doctrine even says, you're old enough now. Humanity has progressed. You have ability to reason. We don't need to give you parables anymore. We can explain the parables to you now. We have a whole book on it, Gospel According to Spiritism. Takes the parables and breaks them apart. And says, here, this is the true meaning behind it. And it was fun. And then as I started reading these things, I started listening to myself and thinking about how it applies to your life, how to my life. I had to some of you that may know, it's like I remember about 8 years old, feeling this need. I was in Boy Scouts, and we were starting to learn about like the Scout oath law and everything else. And for some strange reason, the law, the oath, the do a good turn daily, be prepared, all of those things, they were sitting there saying, like, focus on those. You gotta have these principles. You gotta live a principled, moral life. For some strange reason, that kicked in my head when I was 8 years old. That, and then this strange fascination with Brazil. So I thought it was because I love forests, and it was rainforest. Way back around that time was that movie Medicine Man with Sean Connery and Lorraine Bracco, which I loved at the time. I watched it a lot. But it was, and I thought, oh, it's because I love mountains, woods, forests, waterfalls, everything like that. And it wasn't until 18 years ago, March 2005, that I started finding out that maybe it's something else. Maybe it's the Brazilian culture, or maybe it was Spiritism itself being called into this life. But getting a little bit off track, because it's like, how does Spiritism help me? Well, I was sitting there, first time I actually can settle down for a while. I've been traveling. The job I was with would move me every 6 to 9 months. So I was moving all over the country, really no place to settle. Here was my first time, got laid off. For those that know, that it was like, I had my military deployment, lost my deployment, went to Seattle, and there was a Brazilian woman at my desk. She was the one woman that would later introduce me to Spiritism, because we would get laid off 5 months later. She went to Newark. I put my resume far away and ended up right next door in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, an hour drive. So got in touch with her. She introduced me to Festival, not Carnival, Festival in September. And we struck it up, and I just enjoy the community. And then as I joined in and got involved with Spiritism, the community remained. And you can see it here. And I hope you all see it here, especially in this group here. I was like, I know we have this lovely couple here that I know that for a fact that it's the truth. But it's like that the warmth of the Brazilian culture was so inviting. And then when you had it paired up with the doctrine and going out and being charitable and helping of others, I didn't realize it until a few years later, after I got my first marriage, and it ended up poorly. Since this is being recorded, I'm not going to go into the details. But needless to say, I was devastated. I was broken. And every time I have a bad relationship, or all my relationships fall apart, the center of the area, and this is where I give another credit, is my center in New Jersey still reaches out and talks to me all the time. I have my Spiritist mother up there. She checks on me and says, like, make sure I'm doing everything right. And Levia kind of does the same thing here. I go, when I'm over at Plenitude, there's a nice lady over there. She kind of takes me over with things like and asks me, are you behaving yourself and everything else? And I say, yes, ma'am. So, or at least I'm trying. So, and I sent her the link, so she should be watching this too and making sure it's like, I don't think you should be doing that. But it seems like every time I stumbled and fell, the center rallied to my aid. I didn't need money. I didn't need food. I needed a hug. I needed a friend. The center came to my rescue many times over. I went through 4 long-term relationships, all falling apart. The center came to my rescue. But that's what I need. The center provides. We have the caravan of love. It's great. It's like me being in Sarasota, 2.5 hour drive. I'm being recruited to Tampa. I'm being recruited to Orlando. So it's like I got caravan of loves both locations. I'm like sitting here like having a hard time picking and choosing. And then we have the group here that comes every other week, make food, put together bags of clothes, and goes out and help the homeless every 2 weeks. Wonderful work. They need our help. The center I was up in New Jersey, they had a sister group in Haiti that they would do gift collections. They would get stuff together, get a container, and they would send an entire container of stuff to Haiti, to this sister place, not even a spiritist center. And they go and they help the children and everything else. That warmth, that kindness has been a wonderful thing to see within the Spiritist community. It's one of the reasons I keep coming back. Like I said, I'm in Sarasota. But, I mean, the other speakers in the room, they even know that last week was kind of an interesting thing because we were putting the schedule together and everything else, and all of a sudden we're like sitting, it's like, who's speaking on Thursday? And we're like, so I was like, everyone else saying, I can't. And I was like, well, I don't have anything prepared, but I'll come up. And Levia jumped in and says, no, Brian, that's too far. You take your time, prepare something proper. We'll see you next week. I got this. And then right behind it, she was sitting there saying, hey, I'm overloaded. I need help. And within minutes, responses came back. She was starting to get the help she needed. She asked for help. She started to get it. And she's still looking for more help.
Yeah.
So I keep looking back at it and just saying, like, just sitting here thinking about the things we've learned, the books we've read. And I really hope you guys are reading more than just the doctrinal books. Andre Louise, Emmanuel, with my one center up in New Jersey, right now, actually in about 30 minutes, they're going to start going over the Joanna D'Angelo's book, Self-Discovery. They start at 8 o'clock on Zoom. And it's been an interesting read doing that one, especially with everything I'm going through right now. So as Levy knows, it's like, I didn't realize it, but I actually subscribe to 2 disobsessions, meaning I have New Jersey doing disobsession and I have this place doing disobsession for me. So I'm getting lots of disobsession work, and I needed it, as Levy can attest to. Because it's like when I was pretty low. In fact, there's been a couple times, I don't admit this one too much. If anyone's ever seen my arm up close, way back in college, I was doing the cutting. I had a knife because I needed to feel some other type of pain. I'm not proud of it. I still got the scars. But then again, I didn't have the doctrine at the time. I mean, the only thing I had that that kind of saved me at the time, wild and crazy as it may be, was Star Trek. So, especially because it was literally in a strange bit, and like I said, I'll go slide off tangent. I was watching Star Trek: Next Generation, and it was Worf when he had his back broken, and he asked his son to kill him to commit suicide, and his son said no. And they were saying like, and they were always saying it's like it was not a good. Committing suicide was never an honorable path. That saved me then. Now you add it to it with the doctrine. That big book, Memories of a Suicide. I read it. You have no idea how many times the knowledge in that book, and in Heaven and Hell, and in so many other books that we've read, has stopped me from going down the spiral to that far end. Even that movie I did a review on several months ago, What Dreams May Come, when we were doing Spiritism in the Arts. That movie, especially because Robin Williams' character at the end was willing to do a spiritual suicide so he can be with the woman he loved. And that was the only thing that brought her out of it. And says, no, don't. So that she would come and rescue him in a movie. I sit there, and nowadays I pray for my guardians, friends, everything else, and they come to my rescue. In sometimes the strangest of ways. There will be something around, and all of a sudden I'll get a notification saying, hey, I'll be popping on. I just recently got back on Facebook, and it's been interesting, the stuff that pops up on my feed. And I was sitting there saying, it was like tells you you're special, you got the strength within and everything else. You're a good person. It's like, it's not your fault, it's theirs, or all kinds of stuff. So it helps build me up, and it gives me some strength from within. I'm not fully healed yet. I'm still definitely a work in progress. So, and I'm still rebuilding my heart. So it's been a mess, but I'm getting to it. That was the point. And I keep thanking the centers, all of them, all the ones that I've worked with, even the ones that, like, talking to the Federation and everything else, having me, this whole idea of, I'm in Sarasota, there is no center there. I just found out going to St. Petersburg, there's another gentleman that does live in Sarasota. So now there's 2 in Sarasota that are there. I wouldn't have known that if the Federation, the members of the Federation hadn't suggested, says, be like Paul. What did Paul do? He went and he started traveling to all the different churches and all the different groups, and he spread the message. So they gave me an idea. And I sat there and says, like, hey, Elza, way back when in New Jersey, says, oh, you're a torchbearer. You're an American. There's hardly any American spiritists, and hardly anyone that's speaking that's an American-born spiritist. It's like, you know how rare that is? Go talk. Show that that there's at least one willing to carry the torch that has learned enough and says, this, to quote the Mandalorian, this is the way. So it was fun to do, and it was fun to see. And then now I've been traveling, I'm going to see. Still haven't been able to get a touch of that one down in Fort Myers. They do theirs on Facebook, and they've been doing it Facebook Live, and it's all in Portuguese. And I was like, can't join, sorry. But I try. And then, like I said, and then of course the groups down in Miami. I'll be there next weekend for the Florida Federation one, so I'll be there. Probably not going to do the green suit trick again. But I'll be there because it's family to me. It's my community. It's my home, my second home. Especially, like I said, I've traveled. I've gone many places in this world. A lot of it in the U.S., coast to coast. And then, like I said, went to Australia, went to Canada, some places like that. But the centers, no matter what center it is, has always been warm, has been inviting. Levia, you can remember the first time I came here, a little over a year ago in October, that welcome feeling. And it was even just great to see a familiar face after so many years. COVID did not help at all. So, and it was the time. It was one of those things that really, like I says, I needed it. I needed the center. I don't need to be up here speaking, but I felt compelled. I felt the inspiration within. I was with the group about 2-3 years in. I felt the desire. It says, hey, I started having. For me, it's dreams. I'll get a set of dreams that says, hey, I would start dreaming of me teaching. Never thought of that before in my life. Now I'm teaching. And it's like when I was working for the mediumistic group, I had all kinds of dreams there too. Interesting stories. The very first time I was here, we were doing we had the group out here. We were doing the round table, and that was one of the things they were talking about. One of the scariest spiritist things, and I ended up pulling a dream I had, or actually, no, it wasn't a dream. It was something I was witnessing while I was there in the mediumistic meeting. And it was strange because, like I says, it gave me a sense of feeling. And I was talking this over to some other people. This is because it was war related. Why war related? Well, one of as part of that mediumistic group, I ended up getting a message. They were sitting there saying, like, Brian, you've been an artist in so many lifetimes. That's why you can paint, you can sculpt, you can do woodworking, you can write, you can do poetry, you can do all these different varieties of arts. But the art you seem to like the best is the art of war. We don't want you to do the art of war. You're doing it, you're picking it too much. Use the other ones you have. So, as I come to find out down the road, as people know that the story of how I got introduced to Spiritism, I was in the military. I got booted out of the military on a medical. They didn't find out the heart, but they did find out about the asthma. So they found the asthma out, kicked me out of the Army. But I had the discipline and everything else, and I had the knowledge of being in the service, and I got the discipline and all that other stuff that goes with it. But by kicking me out, I go back to meet the Brazilian woman that took over my spot, to be introduced to her. Again, this is in Seattle. The first center I joined is in Newark, New Jersey. That is across the country. And I was being deployed out of Indiana. So imagine that. I get kicked out of the Army in Indiana. I go back to Seattle. I meet a Brazilian woman in Seattle. I lose my job in Seattle. She goes back to Newark. I get a job right next door in Bethlehem, PA. So I'm within range of her. I didn't get a job anywhere else, and I was putting my resume far and wide. I was going to workshops in San Diego. I was putting my resume to like Texas, all over. But I got one that's within easy distance from her. They joined me up and everything else. And it got me involved with the center there. So all these machinations that went in effect. So by me being kicked out of the Army, I get introduced to Spiritism.
So that's how you got to Spiritism the first time?
Yeah. So, and then as we were finding out with the conditions of the heart and everything else, it keeps me out of it. There's no way. The spirits have made sure, with all my determination and everything else, and they know that I've got that spirit. And this is part of the reasons, again, going back to this, the being a soldier, being in the military, probably many, many times a lot over, I don't have the fear of throwing my life down for another. So just like using the Star Trek term, it's a good day to die. If it's something worth meaningful, I can put everything on the line. And apparently I have. Maybe that's what this life is about. It's like dealing with the other side of the coin. It's like now I'm sitting here saying, it was something me and one of my other friends that's a spiritist. We were, what if? Total what if, no basis on anything. And she was sitting there saying, it's like, this woman you're with, you really, really love her. Like, yeah, unconditionally. But yet she doesn't love me. And it's like, well, maybe that's because of your past life. What do you mean? You went off to war. One of the dreams was you getting killed in Vietnam. Who's to say that really wasn't your past life? I was born after Vietnam War. It's possible that's it. And he died through a knife through the heart. I felt it in the mediumistic meeting. So I was like, but that wasn't what killed him. It was the breaking of his spirit. So, but maybe he left someone behind. And I met the person I was in love with that I married in that past life. But she had to finish that life without me. And did that suffering. So she forgot about it. She was able to let go. And I died still with that fervent love for her. Who's to say that that's not what it's going through? It's like I'm now suffering the same thing she has. Take it right back to the doctrine. We hear that all the time. There's that book, Disobsession, where you see the triangle of how they influence each other and created bad things together. And then the girl comes back and she's disobsessed. They put her in a psychiatric ward, but it wasn't until a nurse that is a spiritist started giving her passes and it showed her relief and she was able to be healed. Certainly not the electroshock treatment she was going through, but she was getting the passes and it was helping her and healing her. And then how many times, and again, it brings me right back to here. It's like everything I've gone through, take it, analyze it, even if it's a what if situation. I don't know if it's real, if it's not. I mean, we do have mentors, maybe, but sometimes they'll pass a message, sometimes they won't. But having the thought, just sitting there saying, hey, this is why your life is as it is. Maybe that's why it's there for. So, I didn't want to talk about me all the whole time, but unless everyone wants to. But I did want to make this one the big part because it was, as I was talking to Levia a little bit, this was something, and it's been interesting when she's been calling me up to do these lectures, and she's been having me kind of like challenging me to pick these topics. And the other thing she's been challenging me to do is get away from bullet points. I can load them up. They're right here on my little drive here. But when I first came here and started doing lectures, I used to do the wall of text. Because I'm sitting here saying, it's like, this is my research. I'm picking little bits and pieces out of it. But here's the whole thing for you to read while I'm up here talking. To maybe inspire you to read the book, the Spirit's book, the Gospel, and everything else. And then Levia says, no. Just do the bullet points. Let them worry about it. Just speak. Speak from your heart. Speak what talks to you. And it's been interesting because like there's been several of these lectures that we've done now about caring, arts, and things like this has just been, I don't want to say whimsy, but it was like I felt inspired to speak it. And this is one that's been, especially with everything I'm going through right now recently, the ups and downs, the emotional roller coaster I've been going through for most of 2023 so far. In fact, all of 2023 so far. The center has been my anchor. It's been there for me. And I hope it's there for you guys as well. From everyone that was here today, most of you raised your hand, so I'm assuming it's helping you in some way, shape, manner, or form. So I'm giving my story, It's one of thousands. Everyone has a unique story. Everyone has their reasons for being here. And they're all worthy. They're all valuable. I'm saying mine because, like I says, I've got the strength to do it now. But at the same token, it's just what I'm saying is like, why do I keep coming back? Why do I drive 2.5 hours to come to a lecture, to give a lecture in a center? It means that much. Why? Because it's been there for me. So I'm trying to be there for the center. And not just the center, but the people within the center. Like I said, I recently rejoined Facebook. You know how many of my friends are spiritists? Majority of them. It's like, and they're finding me in the word. They're like, all of a sudden I'm starting to get friend requests. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember you and everything else. And people are starting to jump in and join in and everything else. So it's like, and I'm able to start reconnecting. And it's been nice to feel that. Because it's like, especially, like I said, this roller coaster. Wasn't too many weeks ago, like Levy knows, because like I said, I was talking to her about it. It's like, I felt utterly alone. I'm out in Sarasota, far away from everybody. It's not like I can just call someone up and say, hey, let's go hang out somewhere. It's a 2.5 hour drive for me to leave. Now, thankfully, I've got the drive and willingness. I will drive. I got a friend up there in Jacksonville. We're trying to find a weekend, and I will literally drive 5 hours to Jacksonville just to hang out with someone. So for me, distance is not the issue. I've got the willingness. I will go. They want me to speak in Miami someday. I'm willing to go. I got invited to be a moderator for this upcoming Spiritist Symposium in Portland, Oregon. I said I was going to go. Because the center, Spiritism, means that much to me. I hope it means as much to you. But unfortunately, I'm so mad that I accidentally left this book on a plane, and I'm pretty sure no one read it after finding it. And I keep looking to see if it shows up in the bookstore, and it's not.
I'll get it.
The Planetary Transition. You know, it's funny, I actually put a request in with Leal, publisher, right after, and when I was in there looking at the book, I have another book that I requested even like 3 months ago. Or no, actually much longer than that now, because I put that request in December. There was another request from October of last year. Now their book is shipped yet. So yeah, and it was like a brand new book, first set issue and everything else.
Have you read this book?
Planetary Transition, I'm halfway through. I literally got through.
I have it. I'll give it to you.
I literally got to the point where Miranda was done helping out after the tsunami that hit Indonesia in 2004, which is strange because I did lose a coworker in 2004 to that tsunami. They went there for their honeymoon or vacation, didn't come back. And that's right before I started getting introduced to Spiritism. Like I said, March 2005. So it was it again hit me in the core reading about it, but then to tie it in with the Spiritism, reading that section of the book, like I said, I only read the first half. To have spirits from all denominations coming together to help the disincarnated, the people that died in that disaster.
It's an amazing book. That's why it's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, when you read it and you see, like they say, you have Muslims, Hindus, the local shamans, the Spiritists, Catholics, all of them coming from all over the world, spirits from all over the world, racing to this area to help these spirits that were recently disincarnated, to help them out, alleviate their suffering, bring them together. And then I know there's Andre Luis does the same thing. And especially when you go at the end of Nasalar, he's sitting there getting ready for World War II. the prep for World War II, and they call the call to action for all the spirits because of what's coming. It's like how much, and then it when you sit there and think about it, it's like, okay, I got my own personal experiences of how the spirits have jumped into my life. It's like, but imagine that. That is for everybody. Whether you're a spiritist or not, whether you believe in God or not, there are spirits that are out there. They are racing to your aid. They are coming and they are helping you. They're inspiring you. Yes, there's some that will also they'll do the cartoon thing. You got the angel on one shoulder and you got the devil on the other. Yeah, that's your little simple obsessions and everything like that. So they're there too. But they're there. You're never truly alone. And then the funny thing is as you read the doctrine and everything else, you find out that little angel may not say much, but it's a lot stronger than than you expect it to be. And we see that as you read the books. To even have a mentor step out of a beam of light, to go into the darkness around, be there with as in Nasrallah they would say umbra, or the lower zones. There's a spirit that was bathed in light. And he said, well, come on out of the lights, be on our terms. He did. He had no fear. And he stepped out into the darkness to be with them and help rescue them. So imagine the power. As you read these books, like it says, you got the doctrine and it gives you the foundations, and I encourage everyone to read them. Even the medium's book. We don't really do that one too much. That one's kind of like, that one's in the like, that's like the when you're ready type book. Read the other 4 first and then go back and read the medium's book. But it's got a lot of great information in it. Actually, speaking of the medium's book, as I was driving up here, the Plenitude group was talking about the teens in Colombia that were fainting from playing with the Ouija board. I was sitting here looking at it. It's like, didn't Kardec set up the rules for that? And he says he did the Ouija board for a while, and then he says, you know what? We don't need this. We went to the planchette, and then we went straight to the autographic writing. And as we're finding out now, they can even speak too. So it's like, but then again, he set up the rules, just like today. We set up the rules. We start this meeting with a prayer. We keep our vibrations high. We keep our elevated. We think of the good spirits, so we do not get influenced by the bad ones. We keep it holy. We keep it sacred, so that when if we are called upon to interact with spirits, if you're a medium, not working in the mediumistic group, you follow these rules, then they don't bother you as much anymore, or you get the good spirits that are coming behind you and talking to you. And sitting there saying, hey, it's okay, we're here with you. So we get messages from the mentors all the time. And even, like it says, and going back even with the other book, Paul and Stephen, it's interesting to see, because you see Paul, he struggles, and the love of his life comes to him in spirit form, picks him up. Stephen comes and picks him up. He has his Damascus moment, and yet it's the early Christians that come to his aid and rescue him. The community came to his aid. We see it in the Bible. We see it in Spiritism. We see it all over. But the one thing with Spiritism is they teach us to follow it. So it's funny you mentioned this. You mentioned this when you did Happy Life would Be Tolerant. I think you mentioned this exact same words. And I'm gonna wrap it up on this one here. But it pulled up the two rules, the golden rules. Love your heart. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And this is the second, which is similar to it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. All the law of the prophets are contained in these 2 commandments. throughout this whole lecture today, I've been talking about that second one, my experiences with it. How within Spiritism we're taught to follow these rules. So I did that. When I was in Newark, New Jersey, I used to hate traffic. And of course there, the horn and a select finger are the language of the road. And reading that and everything else, I started changing my habits and saying, okay, you have this place to be, go with God and everything else. So I started, and you know what, it alleviated my stress. I kind of need to start doing that again when I'm doing this commute from Sarasota. There's several places on I-4 that are just slower molasses. I know my fellow co-workers in construction are working their tails off to build those and expand the roadways and everything else, but it is still painfully slow. But it is work in progress. They see it, they're trying. But it's a short, well, in the grand scheme of things, it's a short-term pain, but once they're done, that's when we give thanks. So once the roadways are widened and everything else, it's like, oh, this feels so much better now. So, and the one bad thing with Florida is it's always construction season. It's not like when I was up in New York or New Jersey, where they shut down for winter. It's like once the snow falls, no more construction. They're too busy plowing the roads, getting the snow off the road. Down here, there's no snow. Every day is construction day. So,
I never thought of this. This perspective is so true. More and more people travel. Moving to Florida is more travel.
Yeah. I came here for myriad of reasons. The heart issue for one, like we were talking about before this meeting started. Too cold. Is it too cold in here? For me, yeah. I can literally freeze to death. Not at 72, but like I says, if I take a nap in a cold room, I had that scare after Sandy. I literally had that scare. Superstorm Sandy up in New Jersey knocked out the power of my apartment, 9 days. After the storm passed, there was a nor'easter that came right behind it. I was praying like you wouldn't believe. And sure enough, as the first snowflakes fell on day 9, the power came back on. But better believe it, I had every blanket on my bed. I put out the polar fleece sheets. We have a no candle policy in the apartment. I broke that rule. I had every candle I can find I could burn safely to try to warm up my bedroom, because it was talking to my doctor. It was diagnosed that my heart rate dives into the 30s. It's like I can pull up my little watch and you'll see.
Good to know.
So yeah, I love to cuddle at night.
That keeps this place a little warmer.
Well, that and it's like when I get sleepy, I like to cuddle, or I'm burrowing under sheets. And sure enough, that's exactly what I do. And that was one of the things we found out is that I can't maintain body heat. So if I'm not buried under covers or like under enough blankets, I can literally freeze to death when I go into my resting heart rate. It's so low that it doesn't maintain body heat. I have a friend that's a nurse. She's been actually shocked. So, and she's like sitting like, how are you still alive? And I was like, it's like lots of blankets.
Really, huh? Yeah.
Lots of blankets, and I'm now in Florida. It does not get that cold. That's why I also choose not to live in Jacksonville. Orlando's as far north as I want to go now. So, but I've talked way too long. It is about 5 till. So let's turn on the music.
No, I do that.
Oh, you will do that?
Yeah, I'd like to sing.
All right, then I will turn over the floor to our esteemed Levia.